Welcome back to the deep dive. I want you to just, picture a file on your computer right now.
Hmm.
It's probably sitting in a folder that's labeled something like personal or maybe career
Or just desperation.
or, yeah, please hire me in all caps. And it's this one document that, for better or worse, claims to summarize your entire existence as a productive human being.
It's the paper key, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
somehow the single most important document in a modern adult's life,
Mm-hmm.
but we spend most of our time actively dreading it.
Absolutely. We are talking, of course, about the resume, or early. We're talking about the CV. You see, even just starting this, I can feel that little bit of anxiety rising.
Oh, yeah.
Because the moment you start to really look at this document, the sheer weight of it hits you. I'm talking about the term itself, curriculum vitae.
Just sounds heavy.
It sounds so heavy, just say it out loud. It does not sound like a list of summer jobs you held at the mall in high school. It sounds important, it sounds academic, it sounds, well, a little intimidating.
That's because it's carrying the weight of history. It's Latin. And the literal translation is the course of life.
The course of life. See, that is heavy. That is so profound. It sounds like something a philosopher would write, right before they die, not a PDF I upload to some online portal for a mid-level marketing job.
Right. Here is the course of my life. I hope you like my experience with pivot tables.
Exactly. It feels like we're dealing with something ancient and sacred here.
And we are. And honestly, just sticking with that term curriculum vitae, that's where the trouble begins for a lot of people, because right away you slam into the core conflict of the working world. Is it a CV? Is it a resume? Are they the same thing?
Oh, absolutely.
If I upload one when they ask for the other, have I just, committed some kind of mortal sin? Am I out of the running already?
This is the classic panic moment. You are applying for a job, you see the button and it says upload CV, but your file is named My Resume Final V3 ...
Final V3, yeah.
Do you rename it? Do you panic? Do you need to write a whole new document from scratch? I feel like every single person listening has had that moment of just complete hesitation.
It's an incredibly common point of confusion. People use the terms interchangeably all the time in casual conversation. You'll hear someone say, hey, send me your CV, when what they really mean is just send me a one-page summary.
Right.
But depending on where you are geographically or what specific industry you're trying to get into, getting that terminology wrong can be a major, major faux pas.
How so?
It sends a signal before anyone has even read a single word of your qualifications. It says, I don't know the norms of this field.
All right. It's the first test, basically. It's a shibboleth. If you know the password, you get in. If you don't, you're out before you even started. So that's our mission for this deep dive. We are not just going to give you formatting tips that we will touch on structure because it absolutely matters. We're going to decode the language of employment. We're going to look at this massive shift that's happening right now and how we value careers. There's a whole narrative trend that's popping up, especially in the sciences.
And we are going to explore some absolutely fascinating and frankly sometimes depressing terminology that's buried in the footnotes of the working world.
The See Also section of our source material today is a complete goldmine of modern workplace psychology and sociology. We're going to talk about bore-out, golden parachutes, and the precariat.
It really is a full tour through the modern condition. We're pulling from a really comprehensive breakdown of the term, its history, its academic usage, and that whole surrounding lexicon you just mentioned. So buckle up. We are going to unpack the course of your life.
Let's start at the very beginning, the words themselves.
The Great Atlantic Divide, or I guess we should start with the Great Linguistic Divide first. Segment 1, Terminology and Geography. You mentioned course of life. Let's dig into that Latin a little bit more.
Yes. Curriculum vitae. Etymologically, it's really quite beautiful, but it's also quite rigorous. Curriculum comes from the verb currere,
Correct.
which means to run.
To run, like a race.
Exactly like a race. A curriculum in ancient Rome wasn't a syllabus for a class, it was a race course. It was the actual track where the chariots ran their laps.
Wow.
So it implies a circular motion, laps, a defined path that you have to traverse. It's not a casual wander through the woods, it's a track.
That feels incredibly appropriate for the modern corporate world, doesn't it? It feels like a grind. I am running the laps. I am on the track.
That's the feeling. And vitae, of course, is the genitive singular of vita, which means life.
Yeah.
So you put it together and you get the running of the life, or maybe a bit more poetically, the race course of the life. Which is, again, so poetic, but then you have to actually say it out loud in a modern office. And this is where I feel like I'm back in high school trying to impress a teacher and just completely failing.
Oh,
How do you actually pronounce this? Because I hear everything. I hear Vitae, I hear Vuiet. What is actually correct here?
Well, there's a legitimate debate, and it's actually recorded in the dictionaries. If you look at the source material, there are 3 distinct variations that you'll find in English, and they each tell you a little something about where or maybe when someone learned their Latin.
It's a linguistic fingerprint.
It is, yeah. It's a classic case of linguistic evolution.
Okay, so lay them on me. What's option 1? The one I can say without, getting laughed out of the room.
Option 1 is the one you probably hear the most. It's the traditional school Latin pronunciation, Vitae Stati. Curriculum vitae rhymes with bow tie.
Okay, that sounds standard. That sounds like what I would expect to hear, maybe in the UCO or in a law firm.
Very common there, yes. And in most American legal or academic contexts as well, it's the safe bet. If you're not sure, go with vitae.
Okay.
But then you have the second variation, which is becoming more and more common because of how Latin is actually instructed in modern settings. That pronunciation is wheatgrass.
Vitae, with a W sound.
With a W, yes. In classical Latin, so the way that Cicero or Caesar would have actually spoken, the letter V, was pronounced like a W. There was no V sound in ancient Rome. So veni, vidi, vici was actually pronounced weni, wheaty, wheaty.
Wow. Okay, so curriculum vitae. That sounds, I don't know, it sounds a little soft maybe. Here is my vitae. I feel like if I walked into a corporate boardroom in New York and said, here are copies of my curriculum vitae, they might laugh me out of the room.
They might. Or they might think you're offering them a breakfast cereal.
Right. It definitely signals a very specific academic background, though.
It does. It tells the listener, I study classics, or I really care about historical phonetic reconstruction. It's a flex, but it's a very dirty flex.
It's a dangerous flex in a job interview.
It can be. And then there's a third variant, which is less common, but still out there, mostly among older speakers, and that is AVT.
BT. Okay, that sounds like a vitamin. Or like mighty. Curriculum vitae.
It's an anglicized vowel shift. It comes from the great vowel shift in English, where we basically changed how we said all of our long vowels. It sounds very, 19th century British barrister. Oh. My good man, pray examine my curriculum vitae.
Okay, so just to be safe, sticking with vitae seems like the best middle ground, but it's fascinating that the pronunciation alone can be a shibboleth. It signals which group you belong to. But the bigger signal, the one that actually affects your job prospects, is how you use the word itself versus the word resume.
And this is the geography part, because I think a lot of our listeners might just assume, oh, CV is just a fancy word for resume.
Right, like flat versus apartment or lift versus elevator. It's just a dialect thing, a bit of local flavor.
And if they are in the UK or New Zealand or Ireland or most of the Commonwealth, they're absolutely right. In most English-speaking countries outside of North America, CV is the standard default umbrella term.
For everything.
For everything. If you are applying to work at a coffee shop in London, you hand in your CV. If you're applying to be a bank manager in Dublin, you hand in your CV. It's just the word for a short summary of your career.
Okay. But then you cross the Atlantic. You land in the US or Canada. And suddenly, the rules change completely.
Completely. In North America, we have a strict bifurcation. We have 2 very different documents with 2 different names and 2 very different purposes. And mixing them up is, well, it can be fatal to an application.
Let's break that distinction down because the source material is very, very clear on this.
Okay, so in North America, the resume, which is a French word, it originally means summary. That's the document you use for almost all non-academic jobs.
So corporate, nonprofit, industrial.
All of it. If you're applying for a job at Google or Ford or a local charity, you send a resume.
And a resume is short, right? The name itself implies brevity.
Exactly. It's short, it's concise, it's a summary, it's a highlight reel of your career, not the full feature film.
Okay, so then what is the CV in North America?
The CV is reserved almost exclusively for academia, for medicine, and for scientific research. And it is not short.
At all.
It is a comprehensive, often massive document that lists absolutely everything you have ever done professionally.
So this is where all the confusion comes from. Because you have American dictionaries and universities, like UC Davis, which is cited in our source, pointing out that people do use them interchangeably in casual conversation.
Right. An American hiring manager might absolutely say, hey, shoot me your CV. What they really mean is send me your resume. And usually in that casual context, it's fine. No one's going to penalize you. But if you are applying for a PhD program or a tenure-track position at a university or a research fellowship and you send them a 2-page resume, you've failed.
Because you haven't shown them enough. It looks like you haven't done anything.
Exactly. You haven't shown them the course of life. And conversely, if you apply for that marketing job in Chicago and you send them a 15-page academic CV listing every single conference you ever attended in graduate school,
You've also failed.
you've also failed. They'll think you don't understand the corporate world at all.
It's the Goldilocks problem. One is too short for the professors, the other is way too long for the recruiters.
That's it precisely. And the source explicitly mentions that despite this conversational confusion, the distinction in North American academia is rigid. You cannot fake it. You just have to know the code.
So let's dig into what actually makes these two documents so different. Not just the name, but the format, the function, the whole philosophy behind them. This is segment 2. Let's start with the industry resume, the common North American style.
Okay, so the purpose of the industry resume is speed. It is a screening tool, first and foremost.
Speed for who? The person writing it.
No. Speed for the reader, the employer, the hiring manager, the recruiter. The source notes that employers rarely spend more than a few minutes reviewing a resume.
A few minutes feels generous.
It is.
Yeah.
In reality, multiple studies have shown it's often just seconds. The most famous one found an average of a 6-second scan.
6 seconds. 6 seconds to judge my entire course of life. That's deeply depressing.
It is.
I spent 4 years in college, 3 years in my first job, all of that effort, and I get 6 seconds.
It is depressing, but you have to understand the reality of the market. A recruiter might get 200 applications for one position. They can't read 200 life stories.
So the goal isn't to find people, it's to get rid of people.
The goal is to screen applicants out as quickly as possible. That is why the format is so brutally concise. 1 to 2 pages, maximum. And the source emphasizes what it calls the scan factor.
The scan factor.
Success depends on having enough white space to make it scannable.
White space. So literally, the empty space on the page is valuable.
Incredibly valuable. Think about cognitive load. If you get a document and it's just a solid wall of text, size 8 font, margin set to 0, your eyes just glaze over. You can't find the key information. You can't see the skills. You can't see the relevant job titles. It's just noise.
So the industry resume is really more like a marketing flyer.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
It's a flyer. It highlights only the experience, the education, and the skills that are tailored to that specific position you're applying for.
Less is more.
Precisely. In the corporate world, brevity shows respect for the reader's time. It also shows an ability to prioritize information, which is a key executive function. It says, I know it's important here, and I'm only going to show you that.
Okay, now let's pivot to the academic CV. Because if the corporate world is less is more, the academic world seems to be more is more.
More is everything. The purpose of the academic CV is to provide a complete, exhaustive, unabridged history of your academic accomplishments. It is the literal realization of that Latin translation, the course of life.
So what goes in there that doesn't go on a resume?
Oh, everything. Your detailed teaching experience, every course you've ever taught with course numbers, every research grant you've ever applied for, won, or even been a part of, every award, every presentation at every conference, every honor. All your service to the university committee work, departmental duties, and most importantly, publications.
It's publication.
Every article, every book chapter, every book review, even the ones from 20 years ago that you're not particularly proud of anymore, they all go on.
And there's no page limit.
There is no page limit. In fact, length is often seen as a proxy for seniority and for productivity. A short CV in academia can actually be seen as a sign of inexperience or worse, inactivity.
So if you're a tenured professor with a 3-page CV, people are going to start asking questions.
They're going to wonder what you've been doing for the last decade. It looks suspicious.
This brings us back to that specific example from the source material that it blew my mind. It mentioned an academic CV that was 69 pages long.
69 pages. Just try to visualize that for a second. That is the size of a novella.
Can you imagine being a recruiter at a tech startup? You open an application and you're greeted with a 69-page PDF.
You would delete it before you even got to page 3.
Mm,
You would assume it was a prank or that the person is completely and utterly out of touch with reality.
right. But in a tenure review committee meeting, that 69-page document is gold. It's the main event.
It is a testament to a career of relentless scholarly output. It reflects a completely different value system. In the corporate world, the key value is, can you do this specific job for me right now?
Right. It's about immediate utility.
Yes. In academia, the value is, what have you contributed to the great body of human knowledge over your entire lifetime?
So the 69 pages isn't just a list. It proves the depth. It proves you've been running the curriculum for a very long time.
And that you haven't stopped. It's an archive. It's a repository of a life's work.
I love that distinction. One is a flyer, the other is an archive. But speaking of archives and, dusty academic traditions, we have to talk about the grammar. Because nothing says I'm smart like correcting someone's Latin.
And nothing says oops like getting that correction wrong.
Exactly. Welcome to segment 3, the grammar corner.
The plural trap. This is a classic. It's the kind of thing that gets debated at faculty cocktail parties, probably after the second glass of wine.
Okay, so let's set it up. Curriculum vitae. Singular. One course of life. What is the plural? If I am a hiring committee chair and I have a stack of these documents on my desk from different candidates, what do I have?
If you want to be correct in both English and Latin, you have a stack of curricula vitae.
Curricula vitae. Okay, so the first word becomes plural, curricula, and the second word, vitae, stays exactly the same.
That is correct. Curriculum is a neuter noun and the second declension in Latin. The plural ends in a. It's a pattern you know from other words. Datum becomes data. Medium becomes media.
And curriculum becomes curricula. Okay, that part's easy enough. But why does vitae stay the same? That's the part that trips people up.
Because vitae is, in the genitive case, it's possessive. It means of life. So when you say curricula vitae, you're literally saying courses of life. The concept of life itself remains this singular abstract. You have multiple courses, but they are all courses of life.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. But this is where it gets tricky, right? Because sometimes people try to be a little too smart. They think, well, hold on. If I have multiple CVs from multiple people, surely there are multiple lives involved.
It's a logical leap. I have Bob's life and Alice's life and Steve's life.
Multiple lives. So they decide to pluralize the second word, too. They say curricula vitarum.
Vitarum.
Vitarum. What does that mean exactly?
So vitarum is the genitive plural of vita, means of lives. So curricula vitarum would literally translate to courses of lives.
Now, that sounds technically accurate. If I have Bob's CV and Alice's CV on my desk, those represent two different lives.
It is technically grammatical in Latin, yes. If Cicero were talking about the different life paths of different Roman senators, he might use that construction. But the source material identifies this as a hypercorrection based on superficial knowledge of Latin.
Ouch. Superficial knowledge. That is a sick burn coming from a dictionary source.
It's a brutal takedown. It's basically a trap for the pretentious. Because while it is technically acceptable if you're referring to a group of CVs belonging to different people, it is arguably incorrect in standard modern usage.
Why?
Because it draws attention to the grammar rather than the document itself. It's fussy. In standard usage, the usage that's recorded in Merriam-Webster and the Oxford English Dictionary and American Heritage is always curricula vitae.
So the advice here is don't try to be the smartest person in the room by dropping a vitarum. You'll just look like a show-off who might actually be wrong.
Exactly. It's the linguistic equivalent of wearing a tuxedo to a casual lunch. Yes, you're technically dressed well, but you just look ridiculous.
Stick to curricula vitae.
Or, if you want to be really safe and modern, just say CVs.
CVs works. We like CVs. It's democratic. It's easy. But let's move on from the grammar of the past to the structure of the future. Because even though we just marveled at that 69-page list of publications, it turns out that the academic world itself is actually starting to rebel against the list format.
This is a really fascinating development, and it's happening right now at segment 4, the evolution of the CV. We are seeing a major shift toward the narrative.
Right. Because the problem with a list, even a 69-page list, is that it's just raw data. It doesn't tell a story. It has no soul.
Exactly. A traditional academic CV is just a long list of publications, grants, and citations. It's basically just counting beans. I wrote 50 papers. Okay, great. But did anyone actually read them? Did they change public policy? Did they help a community? A list can't answer that question.
It measures output, not outcome.
Perfectly put, it measures quantity, not quality or impact.
So, to fix this, enter the responsible research movement. What is that?
It's a global movement, particularly strong in the sciences and medicine. And the goal is to shift the focus of evaluation. They want to emphasize the societal relevance of research, of teaching, of outreach, rather than just counting how many citations you have in a database.
They want to know, so what?
That's the core question. So what? You discovered a new protein. Fantastic. So what? Who does that help? How does that move science forward? How does it benefit society?
And this isn't just some vague philosophical idea. This is actually being implemented by major institutions. The source mentions a very specific, very recent event, October 2024.
The Canadian case study. This is a huge deal for anyone in the research world in Canada, and it's being watched globally. The Government of Canada's main research councils, we call them the Tri-Agency, it's NSERC for Science and Engineering, SSHRC for Social Sciences and Humanities, and CIHR for Health Research.
The big three.
The big three. They announced a transition to a brand new CV template for all funding applications.
And what's the big change in this new template?
They're now allowing a free-form narrative personal statement.
A narrative personal statement? So instead of just bullet points of your achievements, you get to write paragraphs? You get to actually tell a story?
You get to explain who you are as a researcher and why your work matters. And this isn't happening in a vacuum. It aligns perfectly with trends we're seeing in the U.S., with the National Institutes of Health, the NIH, and in the U.K. with UK Research and Innovation. The whole world of science funding is moving away from bean counting.
Why is this such a game changer? It sounds subtle, but it feels big.
It's huge because it fundamentally changes how we value things like soft skills and specialized training, even in the hard sciences. Let me give you an example.
Please.
In a traditional list-based CV, let's say you spent 3 years mentoring underprivileged high school students in a science lab. That might just be one line item. It says, Mentor STEM Outreach Program, 2021-2024. It looks exactly the same as someone who just showed up once a year for a photo op.
Right. The list just flattens the experience completely. It strips it of all meaning.
Exactly. But in a narrative format, you can explain the impact of that mentorship. You can say, I mentored 3 students from underrepresented backgrounds. I developed a specific training protocol for them, and they have now all gone on to pursue science degrees at university, with one winning a national scholarship.
Wow. That's a totally different story.
It's a different world. You can explain how your own unique background influences the kind of research questions you ask. It humanizes the researcher.
It moves from just what have you done, which is the list, to who are you and why does it matter, which is the narrative. It allows for a much more holistic view of a course of life.
It's almost like the original definition of curriculum vitae is finally coming true after all these years. It's becoming a biography again, not just a receipt of your academic transactions.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's becoming a biography. But of course, the CV is just the entry ticket, right? Once you hand it over, whether it's a narrative or a 69-page list, you then enter the actual workplace.
And this brings us to segment 5, the vocabulary of the modern workplace.
This was my favorite part of the source material. It's like we're moving from the document itself to the world of work that document grants you access to. The See Also and classifications sections in the source provided this incredible taxonomy of modern employment that is, frankly, it's a little terrifying, but also incredibly enlightening.
It reads like a dictionary of modern despair with a few glimmers of gold thrown in.
Let's start with the dark side, because the source lists some terms that just perfectly define the modern struggle. First up, bore-out.
Yes, we all know burnout. Burnout is high-octane stress. It's too much work, too much pressure, it's adrenaline overload, and it's followed by complete collapse.
Right.
Bore-out is the polar opposite, but it's just as damaging.
How so? It sounds almost relaxing to be bored at work.
It's not. It's being so under-challenged, so profoundly bored, that it causes its own kind of stress, lethargy, and even depression. It's the awful feeling of knowing you have potential, knowing you have skills, but you are stuck in a role where you do absolutely nothing of value.
It's that feeling of just staring at the clock, watching the minutes tick by, and knowing that your skills and your brain are just rotting away.
Exactly. It's an attack on your self-worth.
Yeah.
It forces you to ask, if I'm doing nothing of value all day, am I valuable? And it often leads directly to another term on the list, presenteeism.
Presenteeism. Okay, so that's being at work but not really being there, is that right?
Correct. It's the act of being physically present at your desk, showing your face, but not actually functioning. Maybe you're sick and you should be home, maybe you're distracted by a family issue, or maybe you're just suffering from intense bore-out. But you are there physically, adding zero value, just to keep your seat warm.
Because the culture demands it. If I can't see you at your desk, you must not be working.
Exactly. It's a total failure of management. It prioritizes the appearance of work over the actual output of work.
Which, of course, feeds into the dread. Which brings us to the next term, the source lists. The Sunday scaries.
A very modern term for a very age-old feeling. It's that specific sense of dread that you experience on a Sunday afternoon or evening right before the work week starts again.
I think every single person has felt that. The sun starts to go down on Sunday and your stomach just drops.
It's the anticipation of the loss of freedom. It's the knowledge that the cycle is about to begin again.
And maybe you have the Sunday scaries because you know you're going back to a toxic workplace. The source actually lists some specific toxic behaviors. My favorite, or I guess my least favorite, was kiss up, kick down.
Oh, that is a very specific and a very nasty personality type.
Yeah.
It's the classic middle manager who is just incredibly charming and obsequious to their superiors.
Kissing up.
Yes, they bring the boss coffee, they laugh at all their jokes, but they are abusive and tyrannical to their own subordinates. They're kicking down.
It's the worst kind of coworker, because if you try to complain to the boss just says, "What are you talking about? Steve is great. He's my right-hand man."
Exactly. The toxicity is completely hidden from above, and it's directed entirely below. And the fact that this behavior has its own specific category in the See Also list suggests it is far, far too common in corporate structures.
It must be. And it might be related to two other really heavy terms that were listed: narcissism in the workplace and psychopathy in the workplace.
Whoa. Yeah, those are heavy clinical terms to just be thrown around in an article about employment.
They are, but it's telling that they're there.
It's very telling, but they are relevant. Because corporate structures, unfortunately, can sometimes reward those traits. The ability to charm up and kick down, a lack of empathy, a laser focus on personal gain. Those can get you promoted, at least in the short term.
So the source listing them as See Also categories suggests there's a significant amount of literature out there connecting these personality disorders to organizational structures.
And to what we often call success.
That is genuinely terrifying. So the system might actually be selecting for psychopaths.
In some hyper-competitive, results-at-any-cost environments. It's certainly a well-documented risk.
Yeah. And if you are stuck under one of those people doing work that feels completely meaningless, you might have what the source calls a bullshit job.
This is a concept that was popularized by the anthropologist David Graeber. A bullshit job is a job that is so pointless, so utterly unnecessary, that even the person doing it feels deep down that it shouldn't exist.
It's different from just a bad job, right? A hard job.
Oh, completely different. A bad job like cleaning sewers or collecting garbage or being a nurse is necessary. It's hard work, it might be unpleasant, but if those people stop doing it, society collapses. Those are vital jobs.
Right.
A bullshit job is, ticking boxes on forms that will never be read, compiling reports that go straight into the digital shredder. It's being a corporate lawyer whose only real job is to create work for another corporate lawyer.
It must create this deep sense of existential despair. I am wasting the only life I have.
Exactly. Humans have a fundamental need to feel useful. Bullshit jobs are a direct assault on that need.
Now contrast that with the McJob.
The McJob. A term that was popularized by the author Douglas Coupland and then really cemented by McDonald's, much to their annoyance.
I'm sure.
It refers to low pay, low prestige, low prospect work.
But unlike the bullshit job, the McJob is usually doing something real. You're serving food. You're doing actual labor.
That's true, but it's characterized by the lack of a future. It's a dead end. It's viewed by society as a temporary station, not as a career. It lacks dignity.
Okay, now let's look at the other end of the spectrum. The people who are definitely not working McJobs. The golden terms.
Yes. The exit strategies of the elite. First, we have the golden handshake.
That's it.
A very generous severance package. It's essentially, we want you to leave, so here's a giant pile of money to go away quietly and not sue us.
Must be nice. Here's $1 million. Please stop coming to work.
Right. And then you have the golden parachute.
Which is even better, I assume.
It's more specific. That is protection for executives.
Yeah.
Usually the top-level C-suite during a merger or a dismissal. If the company gets bought out and they're fired, or if they run the company into the ground and get pushed out by the board,
they still get paid.
They deploy the golden parachute and they float gently down to safety on a cushion of millions and millions of dollars.
While all the workers below them might be facing mass layoffs.
Or facing life as part of the precariat.
This is a really important socioeconomic concept the source highlighted. Precariat. I feel like this is a term we are going to hear more and more in the coming years.
I think so too. It's a portmanteau. It blends precarious and proletariat. It describes a new and growing social class of people who are living with deeply unstable employment. Think gig workers, zero-hour contracts, temporary staff, freelancers.
So this is not the traditional working class with unions and pensions and job security.
No. They have no security, they have no predictability, they often don't know if they're going to have work next week. They're always one missed paycheck away from disaster. They live in a constant state of precariousness.
Which leads, I think, to the final dark term on the list, wage slavery.
A very provocative term, but one with deep historical roots in labor movements. It describes the condition where a person's livelihood depends entirely on wages. Usually immediate wages, drawing parallels to a lack of genuine freedom.
The argument being, if you cannot afford to stop working for even a day without risking starvation or addiction, are you truly free?
It's a heavy question. It challenges the whole notion of what we call free labor.
It does, and it all circles back to this one document, doesn't it? The CV.
Yeah.
The resume. It's the tool we use to try to escape the precariat, to avoid the McJob, to hopefully one day find a golden handshake, or at the very least, just avoid the Sunday scaries.
It is the currency of this entire brutal ecosystem. It's the ticket you hope will get you out of the hole.
Or at least we hope it is. We have covered a lot of ground today. We started with the Latin roots, the curriculum vitae, the course of life. We debated the pronunciation, is it Vitae or is it Vitae?
We did.
Yeah.
And we navigated the geography of the Great Atlantic Divide, the short, punchy U.S. resume versus the sprawling global CV, the 6-second scan versus the 69-page archive.
We learned about the grammar trap of curricula vitarum. Don't do it, folks. Just say CVs. It's easier for everyone.
Please.
And we saw the potential future in the Canadian narrative CV, this big shift from just lists to actual stories.
And finally, we explored the terrifying vocabulary of the modern workplace, from bore-out and bullshit jobs all the way up to golden parachutes.
It really highlights that this piece of paper or this PDF file on your computer is just an entry ticket. It gets you into this incredibly complex ecosystem of gold collars, pink collars, gig workers, and knowledge workers.
It does, and it really forces us to ask, what are we actually presenting to the world with this document? What story are we telling?
Which brings us to our final thought. The source mentioned two other interesting see also terms that we didn't quite get to: resume fraud and video resumes.
Both are rising trends. One is about deception, the other is about performance.
So, as we move toward these narrative formats and as we start using video to apply for jobs, TikTok resumes are a real thing now, are we actually moving closer to the truth of who a candidate is, or are we just getting better at rewarding the best storytellers?
That is the fundamental danger, isn't it? A list of facts, like on the old CV, is hard to spin. You either won the award or you didn't. You either published the paper or you didn't. A narrative, that's pure spin. That's rhetoric.
So we might be moving from an era of who did the most work to a new era of who tells the best story about their work.
Which is a valuable skill in itself, don't get me wrong, but it's maybe not the #1 skill we want to prioritize when we're hiring, say, a brain surgeon.
Exactly. And if the plural of curriculum is curricula, meaning courses, maybe we're focusing too much on the course, the list, the race, the steps we've taken. And in this new narrative world, we're still losing sight of the vitae.
The life.
The actual life behind the document.
The human being. That is what matters.
Something to think about the next time you have to update that file on your computer. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.
See you next time.